Hey guys, for one, forgive me if the quality isn't really the best. I don't really record videos too often, I don't really record dialogue too often. However, this is not really a well put together video, but this is just something I really want to just rant off about. So, it's like, this is very, new news, but if you haven't heard, it has been reported that the Russo brothers are in talks with Marvel to direct Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 in the future. And it's also been rumored and said that Marvel is actually going to try to get rid of Kang the Conqueror, the main antagonist of the multiverse saga, and go a quote-unquote new focus. As I said, it is very early in talks. It's not even confirmed, it's just in talks. So because of that, it's up in the air or not they are going to sign on and if this is going to go through. And the same thing with reportedly about wanting to do a new focus. Still likely Kane might be involved, but whether or not he's going to be the central antagonist is unknown. But right now, the main point is that I really need to rant off about this. So, Marvel lately has definitely had quite a dip in quality. Yes, ever since Avengers Endgame. Phase 4, I haven't really kept up with Phase 4, but unfortunately, it's like, I'm not gonna say for the longest time I was iffy about Marvel, but I don't feel like it was like downhill. They just kind of hit like a dip in quality. I haven't watched a lot of Phase 4, I've watched some, and some I do genuinely enjoy. I enjoy Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I enjoy Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I enjoyed Spider-Man No Way Home, of course. But lately it's the fact that now going into Phase 5, we're in the middle of the year and yet we're almost like a year or two away from how the multiverse saga ends. And regardless, since then, I don't want to talk much about like controversy because that might hurt my channel, and I don't want to like cause much in the comments. But of course, yes, when Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came around, the character of Kang was the main villain. And ever since then, it was being set up where not he's going to be the main villain of the multiverse saga. But that really started in the Loki series, which I watched and I also enjoy Loki. But the problem is that because of circumstances, and because of how Quantumania didn't do as well as Marvel and Kevin Feige was hoping, they have completely panicked and have written out Kang's character as of yet, or at least pushed him to the side. For the longest time, for at least a year or two, it's still unknown what are they going to do with his character. Because it's in a place where he's not out of the universe yet, but they don't know how his role is going to go well. But now we get into the real crux of the issue. Is that for the longest time I was like still advocating for how they're going to handle the character of Kang. Because personally I think there is still so much you can do with him. Just because Kang is a very OP character, even in canon comics. He is a very powerful and intense character because of his ability of time travel, his connection to the multiverse. He has such a rich lore and history, with of course how he has multiple variants, and his character has such a huge role and presence just in Marvel Comics. However, the real issue we have here is that Marvel apparently has plans to try to write out Kang as the main villain of the multiverse saga. And as a result of that, they're going to try to have a new villain in Avengers 5 and 6. I mean, they even say that Avengers 5 is not even called the Kang Dynasty. Instead, it's going to be called something else. And this is the major issue. The major issue is Marvel is overcomplicating something that is so simple. Because of the fact that they are so scared of just the reception of Kang's character from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So because of that, it's the fact that how Quantumania flopped and they were hoping that was going to be a big movie for them. It's the fact that it didn't do well for people. And I feel like the issue wasn't necessarily the character of Kang, or even just the controversy with the actor. It's the fact that Marvel didn't hire the best writers. And that was actually kind of like a running thing for the entire Phase 4 and into Phase 5, is that Marvel just hasn't gotten the best writers. They constantly do reshoots, they constantly do revisions, they're never solid or structured anymore. And here's when we run into the issue, and what I'm really trying to drive at, is that Marvel has flopped sometimes. Every now and then, but Quantumania was their biggest nail in the coffin. The issue is that they took that as like an attack on themselves. And because of that, they're trying their hardest to rewrite the multiverse saga, and I want to rewrite Kang's character. But that's the issue, is the fact that they've written so much of Kang's character to the MCU. He has such a huge role and presence. Even in Loki, giving us his backstory, he has such a connection to the multiverse. He founded the multiverse. He has such a rich lore and history about how his variants collided on wanting to create a new universe, to the point where whoever the King was going to be the villain of the multiverse saga, they kind of just nerfed his character a little in Quantumania. But if you watch the movie, they wrote in the reason why they had to nerf him. Still, the issue is that Marvel is trying their hardest to write out Kang's character, even if truth, they haven't really done much with his character. Since Loki, they set up such a huge and rich lore of Kang, and the fact that his character has such a presence and a hold on the Marvel universe and the multiverse. And because of that, it's the fact that they're trying to write him out and trying to write in a new villain. And that does not make any sense. You can't just retcon the entire multiverse saga and bring in a new villain out of nowhere. They have done so much with Kang's character, so much with his lore, so much with his presence and his touch on the MCU. He has such a huge presence in the MCU, and it's the fact alone is that I feel like the biggest reason is that they just oversaturated him. They're really trying their hardest to bank on his character of Quantumania and the Loki series, and I feel like they did that so much in such a little time. And I feel like that's the main issue with his character. It's not in the fact that the character was like poorly handled, it's the fact that like even if the character wasn't interesting to fans at first, that's okay, because they did the same thing with Thanos. Thanos' character just appeared out of nowhere, but then by the time Infinity War came along, a lot of people love him. That's because that movie gave so much for his character. If people immediately just panned, like if things like Age of Ultron or the first Avengers movie flopped, would they have written out Thanos? Maybe. Maybe not. But if they were, it's the fact that they couldn't have tried to get a new villain in there just because of the fact that they set up Thanos and he was such an important character in the Avengers films. This is the same thing with Kang, just because of the fact that Kang has such a huge role and a presence in the multiverse saga. He has such an important role in the origin of the multiverse, and because of that, writing him out just because there was controversy with the actor and the fact that the movie had a major flop is just such a cheap move. Because now we get into the obvious situation. Why can't they just recast Kang's character? They should just recast and just get better writers. I feel like the main problem with Quantumania is the fact that they hired Rick and Morty writers, and I don't watch Rick and Morty anymore, and I feel like a lot of fans have agreed the show has gone downhill. So because of that, that was the issue, is that they didn't hire the best writers to write the character. And this is the simple solution. It makes no sense why Marvel can't just recast Kang and just get better writers. And now because of that, they want to bring back the Russos, which in general is just a bad idea. The Russos has had their time and had such important projects in the MCU, yes. Captain America Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. We get it, they're good directors. The problem is that that era of the MCU is over. So instead of getting new blood, better writers, and just recasting the main antagonist, what are they gonna do? They're gonna write all of that out so late last minute, and they're gonna rush out the movies. Because they confirmed they're gonna start filming next year, and it's supposed to come out in 2026. And that's the issue, is that they are rushing things. They're rushing things, and I know it's most likely not gonna turn out the best. And it could have easily been avoided if they just simply recasted Kang, get better writers, and brought back the Kang dynasty. And because of that, it would have been a lot more smoother for Marvel. Because the thing is, yes, the Multiverse Saga had a rough start, but what matters is how you stick the landing. And if Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 would have been good movies, or great movies, and made money, it would have made the saga worth it. Just because we know in the end, we know what they're building up to. It's like if you go back and rewatch all of Phase 4 and 5 and 6, when Avengers 5 and 6 come out, you would say, it's worth it just because it landed on the right foot. And that all could easily be achieved if Marvel simply just recasted Kang and bring back the Kang dynasty. And I do not understand what the main issue with Kevin Feige and the people at Marvel are, because again, there was controversy with the actor. Yes. There was a major flop at the box office. Yes. But that does not give them the right to ruin the character, to completely destroy and retcon everything that they've been building up to for basically like 3 or 4 years, since like 2021 or 2020, even worse, 2020, when the Multiverse Saga really started with WandaVision. And since then, it's just been multiverse and such, and that all goes back to Kang's character. So for the last 4 years, going into 5 and then 6 years, they've been setting up the multiverse, they've been setting up Kang, and then late last minute, they're just gonna take all of that out and put in a new villain. When all they can really do is just recast Kang, get new writers, get new directors that have good experience, and because of that, bring back the Kang dynasty, just make a better story. I do not see what the problem is, Kevin Feige and Marvel. All they really need to do is just recast Kang. How is that so difficult? How is that so difficult to just recast the character? Because you've done this multiple times. Marvel is no stranger to recasting. They did this with War Machine, James Rhodes, by recasting Terrence Howard and bringing in Don Cheadle. They've recasted Cassie, Ant-Man's daughter from Quantumania. And even recently with Captain America, Brave New World, they've recasted Thunderbolt Ross with Harrison Ford, and he's going to become the Red Hulk in the movie. All just because, unfortunately, the original actor, William Hurt, passed on years ago. And this is where things really get really stupid and ridiculous, because they're okay with recasting Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross, but they can't recast Kang just because Quantumania flopped. It makes no sense, and it's very hypocritical when you think about it, because they've recasted before with actors that were either problematic or there were outside circumstances. But because of that, they recasted, and guess what? The characters are still beloved, and the story's been the same. The story's been good. And that's unfortunately was the incident with Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. Because of his unfortunate passing, the producers were against the idea of recasting him, when in truth, a lot of us can agree they really should have just recasted him. And this is a similar situation. So, instead of just recasting Kang, which is the #1 easiest solution that they could do, they're bringing back the Russos as a last-ditch effort to save the MCU, and as a result of that, they're going to completely retcon 5 years, 6 years at the very most, 5 to 6 years worth of story building, just because there was controversy with the actor and just because they had a major flop. Just because you had one flop, Marvel, does not mean it's the end of the world. All you need to do is just recast Kang and just get better writers and just make the Kang dynasty. It's that simple. You've recasted multiple times and things have turned out for the better. This is no different here. So if you really just write out Kang's character so late last minute, just to rush out Avengers 5 and 6, just so you can finally end the Multiverse Saga, just because of the fact that you had flops, just because there was controversy, does not really give you the right to do this. You may own the rights to the characters, you may be in association with Disney, but you're very much hurting the fan base. Why? Just because Just because the movie flopped does not mean that everybody hated it. Just because Kang wasn't well received by a majority of people does not mean there wasn't still a small section of fans. Like myself, I was advocating for Kang's character and I was advocating for the Kang dynasty. Just because there is so much they can do with Kang's character. There's so much lore that they can pull from. All of this could be achieved if they simply just recasted the Kang character and bring back the Kang dynasty. It's that simple. So ultimately, my main point I'm trying to get at is that I'm frustrated with the fact that Marvel is so overcomplicating the situation. You've done this multiple times with problematic actors, or just problematic situations. So all Marvel has to do is just recast Kang, get new writers, get new blood with the directors, and bring back the Kang dynasty. All this is simple. You've already sat down and laid down the story. You just need to revise, or just make it more interesting. It's that simple. And like I said, this is still in early in talks things. So it's unconfirmed whether or not they are still going to come on board, but still early in talks. But regardless, if they really write out Kang's character instead of just simply recasting him like they've done to multiple characters, this will be one of the stupidest decisions in all of Hollywood. And it's decisions like this that would really hurt Marvel, and really hurt their perception. All this just because there was controversy with the actor and the fact that the movie flopped. Which again, is not the end of the world. They're just circumstances, but you can write around them. So all they need to do is just recast Kang. That's it. That's it. That's all they need to do. Just recast Kang, get new writers, and bring back the Kang dynasty. Just because of the fact that if they really do this of writing in a new villain out of nowhere, which people are saying Doctor Doom, that it's going to be Doctor Doom. I love Doctor Doom. I want to see his character. But I don't want to see it at the expense of writing out 6 years worth of storytelling with Kang's character. 6 years worth of world building with a character who they made clear has a presence, has an important role in the multiverse, has a hold on the multiverse, has a hold and a connection to the story and to the characters. All this is going to be revised and written out just so they can pull Doctor Doom out of nowhere. That would be extremely tasteless. It would be very stupid. They really should have just set up Doctor Doom years ago when they've gotten the rights to the Fox characters like the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. So because of that, you can't just set up Doctor Doom out of nowhere in Secret Wars or Avengers 5. It makes no sense. How are you going to write in this character? Because there's literally nowhere in the future of Phase 5 or Phase 6 for them to introduce the character of Doctor Doom. So because of that, if they simply just recasted Kang, or if they are going to do Doctor Doom, just save him for Secret Wars, and save him as an overarching big bad for Phase 7 and beyond. Because it's rumored Phase 7 is going to be heavily involving the mutants and the X-Men, which would be nice. But again, before we get to that, establish Kang's character, because the only way that would happen, the only way they could properly introduce the X-Men, is say that the MCU is going to get rebooted after Secret Wars. Which would be fine, only if they can completely conclude Kang's storyline, because in truth, Kang's storyline has not yet been resolved. The last time we really saw his character was honestly in the Loki series, where the Loki series, his character has been written out for a while, just because of what happens in the show. But still, the ending of Quantumania let it known that they are setting up the Kang dynasty with his variants. So ultimately, all Marvel has to do to really resolve this and to resolve their poor perception is to just get new writers, get new blood, and just recast Kang. Make Kang more of a threatening character to the wide public audience. And ultimately, I think that's the only way to really resolve Marvel and their conflict. All they need to do is just recast Kang and just revise the story to be more interesting. And just do not oversaturate his character. The truth is, you could still write in Kang as one of the best villains they could do, because they did that with Thanos. He only appeared in the post-credit scenes for a handful of movies, fully appeared in Avengers Infinity War as the central protagonist, and was the villain in Avengers Endgame, but that wasn't even the main version of Thanos. It was a variant of Thanos, and yet it still worked. So they need to do the same thing here. Avengers 5 should still be the Kang Dynasty, because it would be all about Kang, and it will be all about his character and explaining why he has such an importance to the MCU. It's that simple. All this could be achieved if they just recast it, because I literally do not understand why can't they just recast Kang. It's that simple, Marvel. They have done this multiple times before, and again, they insist that they are going to start filming next year. So if they're going to do that, you cannot just automatically out of nowhere just pull out a new villain and just say this was the plan all along. No, we are 5 months away from the end of 2024, and then sooner or later we'll be at least 1 year away from Avengers 5. And then, before you know it, it's going to be the end of the multiverse saga. The only way to do that properly is just to recast Kang and just revise the story to be better, by getting better writers and new directors. So, because of that, if you're insistent of having to have a new villain, then either way, if it's not Doctor Doom, it's going to be stupid because this character would have been pulled out of nowhere with no build-up, no setup, no backstory, just written out of nowhere because Marvel is too cowardly to recast the main villain. So that is why recasting Kang is the only solution to this situation. Sorry, just frustrated. This is unscripted. So ultimately, my final thoughts, Marvel is very, 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 very stupid for doing this. They just need to recast Kang and just get better writers and save the Kang Dynasty. That is literally the only way to truly end off this saga, is by having a resolution to the Kang storyline, because his story has not yet been concluded. And as soon as the story has been concluded, in Avengers 5 and Avengers 6, finally wrap up his character arc, because again, they have done nothing but set up his character and his hold on the multiverse since 2020. For the last 4, 5, and then 6 years, it's been nothing but multiverse stuff, and that's all because of Kang's character. So ultimately, Marvel, #recast Kang, and save the Kang Dynasty. You don't need to do Doctor Doom, you don't need to pull out the Russos, you need to recast Kang, get new writers, and fix this. I know I say that a lot in this video, but it's because I'm not a writer. Marvel has access to writers. They know what to do. If they were on board, they'll figure out what to do because they're professionals. Not us, we're just fans, and what we're doing is giving critiques. And that's all the point of this, is trying to critique Marvel and their very slippery slope at this point. So Marvel, just recast Kang, get in a new actor, get in new writers, get new directors, and just conclude the Kang storyline with Avengers 5 and Avengers 6. Bring back the Kang Dynasty by just recasting Kang. Simple as that. There is literally no other way to do this other than just recasting. But what do you think? Do you think I should do more rant videos like this in the future? And do you think it's so easy to just recast Kang's character and just save the Kang Dynasty? If so, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. For in the case of me, I may do more videos like this in the future. Thank you so much. Leave me your thoughts below if you believe that Marvel recasting Kang and bringing back the Kang Dynasty is the only solution to this.